Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Ready and raring to go.
Yeah.
I wished I could say, solve another problem today. All I can say is attempt to alert people to some of the problems I have, so we are prepared when it really gets hot and heavy.
Yeah.
But I bet you we'll find something that we can say, on the positive. No matter, we always have something positive. So when things are real bad, you say, we just woke up another million people, because they probably didn't believe it could ever be this bad. But anyway, I still will maintain that it's, the world is driven ultimately by ideas and violence.
Yeah.
Of course, our idea is to change things without the use of violence. But anyway, there's been a meeting over in Davos, and they're getting involved in something that sounds like it's this must be just made up, this conspiracy stuff, because it's been known, this social credit system. And that's been around for a while. I think the communists like that system, and I think the Chinese like this system. But now this meeting is a world meeting. I wonder if they're really conspiring to try to unify the world under a system like this. And they do that with finances and different things. Then they do it with military groups like the various United Nations and the defense groups. But anyway, they're meeting there. And they're serious, and they have their scientific means, and I bet they're big into computers. They're going to register everything, because they're going to. Not that they don't keep enough records on everybody already, but this looks like this is serious, because it's not just keeping records for selling your name to somebody so that they can sell you more stuff. This is, if you don't obey, you can get into big trouble, and it's the state that will come down hard on you. So there's been a little bit in the news on this, but I think it's real serious, going in the wrong direction, and hopefully the people will wake up and decide we don't even need to be involved in this kind of nonsense.
And what this is really is a foot in the door, because they don't outright say in the beginning, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a social credit score. You can't do anything unless you score high enough. Just like they said, hey, we're passing the Patriot Act. We're not going to spy on Americans. Are you crazy? You're a conspiracy theorist. This is a foot in the door that will lead to other things. And as you say, this happened at Davos. And J. Michael Evans, he's the president of Alibaba Holdings, which is interesting because it's a Chinese company. It's a massive company. As the article, and we saw it on the Off Guardian, which is a great website, points out, if you want to do any e-commerce business in China, you're using Alibaba. So Evans was a vice chairman at Goldman Sachs. He's moved over to Alibaba, helping out the Chinese, and basically he blurted out, because they're not ashamed of these things anymore, Dr. Paul, he blurted out that Alibaba, massive company, is developing a green social credit app that monitors basically, in fact, let's just listen to it in his own words. Let's play that first clip. Here's him talking at a panel in Davos among the very rich and very well connected about what they are planning for the rest of us. If we can hear it, let's listen to what he has to say.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's, where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
So where you're traveling, how you're traveling, what you're eating, you better be eating those bugs. Don't have a burger or you're going to be in trouble. That's what's going on. And at first, they put it in here like, this is to save the earth. If you don't follow this, then you must hate the earth. But of course, it's going to expand, as it has in China, to your political views, to your medical views, to your other behaviors. It's just absolutely obvious.
The question I have for them, let's say they're serious and they're going to make the world better if their ideas come about. I'd like to know technically how they separate the two things. Some CO2 is very necessary and good and beneficial, and other CO2 might represent some pollution.
Yeah.
How are they going to get this footprint? And I guess that's what they're studying up there, to find out how to do this. But when you think about it, the CO2, I think about CO2 medically, and everybody's lungs are bathed in CO2, and we exhale CO2. It goes on and on. And one thing in medicine that is a common problem that we all see in emergency rooms, people hyperventilate, and they don't have enough CO2. The problem is they've depleted their body of CO2, and you have to give them a bag to breathe in, so you get the CO2 levels up. And there might be something else, maybe the carbon cycle that they don't care about. Maybe there's some positive things in the carbon cycles. Who knows about plant life might or something, benefit from CO2. So this is just total nonsense on planning. Matter of fact, the main reason is their motivation for it. They're not even saying that we're going to improve the health conditions of people. We're going to destroy the physical health of people by all the spying on everybody. I mean, this was sort of like saying, the Patriot Act was going to make us great patriots and protect us from terrorists. And I don't think it's worked out all that well. And it did take away the liberties of people who were totally innocent of the problems going on. So this is mischief far and beyond anything that should have ever come about in a system that is designed by our founders and wrote up a constitution trying to protect about excessive government. So I think that if there's some type of monitoring going on, it has to be taken out of the hands of the government, because it will be used for evil reasons.
Yeah, and as I think you're suggesting here, it's not really about CO2, it's about power. And we've talked ourselves blue in the face here about how the big American companies and corporations are more than happy to do the bidding of governments. And we see that Alibaba, of course, in China is very happy to do the Chinese government's bidding. We're going to have adoption by Amazon and other companies here of the same thing. Now back to China's social credit system. Now that was started in 2009. It's pretty recent, actually. It was launched as a pilot project in 2014. This is according to Wikipedia, so it's not, I didn't do a deep dive into it. But it was born out of, remember, in the 80s and 90s when China began to become an industrialized power and people began to get wealthy, they said, we got to control this. What's happening? So it's born out of the financial credit system of the 80s in China. They wanted to add the dimension of trustworthiness to people. Not only are you a good saver and you pay your bills on time, but you're a good citizen. You don't watch the Liberty Report, right? so that's the source of it. But here's another thing from the CEO of Alibaba, what he talked about, and he's all excited about this. The third thing, we call it green travel. So we have within our business something called a MAP, a mapping. Think Google Maps or Waze plus travel destination business. So what we're going to allow, I love that word, what we're going to allow people to do is, in fact, first of all, calculate the best and most efficient route and the most efficient form of transportation. So I'm thinking, here it is a Sunday. Dr. and Mrs. Paul, they want to take a little Sunday drive, look at some of the greenery around Brazoria County. You get in your car, you start driving around, maybe you're going to take a little trip to Sargent, and all of a sudden your car comes on. Dr. Paul, you have not chosen the most efficient way to get to Sargent. We had decided to shut off your car. Please reroute yourself to the most efficient way. It sounds funny, but it's actually not that funny.
Yeah, it's sad, but it'll always be well motivated. But they have the punishments that can be, they can fine people and they can threaten arrests and all kinds of things. They even put people in jail if they continue to do something. But I think it's the social pressure that's put on there, that it put a label on you that you don't care. The whole thing, how you can be. easily accused of being unpatriotic if you vote against the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
How could you be anything but unpatriotic if you don't vote for the Patriot Act?
Exactly.
You know, so that's that kind of social pressure. We're seeing more and more of that now all the time. You know that put the pressure on it. We certainly saw it was that pressure, not directly. We didn't have a government Gestapo out there. They used the business community to monitor us during the epidemic.
Exactly.
And guess what? They've retained some of those obstacles for us too. They're still meddling in our freedom of movement.
Well, that's a great transition to our second story. And let's put up that clip. This is from the Epoch Times. California is not done abusing its citizens yet. And this is from May 26, Epoch Times. California poised to adopt medical misinformation bill targeting alternative COVID-19 protocols. I think whenever you see misinformation or disinformation, you know, the red flag should go up because it actually means the opposite. But this is pretty chilling, and if you look at this, I'll just read a second of it, Dr. Paul, and send it over to you. California legislators poised to pass Assembly Bill 2098, described as a medical misinformation bill. If passed, the new law would prohibit doctors from freely providing medical advice and treating their patients if those practices run counter to the official state-sanctioned position.
You know, I don't know how many times on this program, when I've had the opportunity, when we talk about expenses in medical care and lockdowns and epidemics, is that the most important part of medicine is totally forgotten. And this is another example, the doctor-patient relationship.
Yeah.
And this whole thing that the FDA will solve our problems. When I started medicine, I thought, well, there's always lawsuits, and we had to have insurance even when I was starting, if there's malpractice. But I kept thinking, well, if you have the good housekeeping seal of approval by the FDA, they couldn't possibly sue you for malpractice because they would have figure this all out, but that is an answer. But now the atmosphere is different because for years, even before the FDA and all this, and especially in the last several decades, doctors have been known to be very creative and thoughtful when they're dealing with an individual patient, and it's not written up or studied or researched by the FDA, but it made sense to the doctor and the patient. And with full knowledge, they would try a drug for something else.
Yeah.
Maybe they would try ivermectin for a virus or something like that. Oh, that is bad. And what they've done here, that they have criminalized doing that. But the truth is that 40% of prescriptions right now are off-label. People think off-label means just somebody just stuck it out there. No, it means that it's gone through a lot of testing and people know about it, but the label didn't give the approval specifically for you to try it on something else. And what they're doing here is they're switching this. They don't want 40% of people thinking for themselves and letting the doctor and the patient work it out. What they're saying is they're accusing the doctor, if you do it, that you're experimenting.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to say now, and I think in this bill it includes that. The ivermectin would be experimentation, puts it in entirely a different position than the doctor having off-label, because that's been known, and now they're attacking it. This is a big attack on private practice, is what it is, and you can lose your license on it. Now the devastating part of this, which is mean and nasty, but a way to get more control. You say, well, that wouldn't be so bad. I know California's nuts, and if I don't follow this, I'll move to Texas, or I'll move someplace. Problem is when you get another license in another state, they'll say, have you ever lost your license for any reason?
Yeah.
And then you're on the defensive, and it's going to be much more difficult to use the states' rights issue, which has been beneficial in some of the things going on today because people are leaving California, but if because of the licensing, this is another argument, because a good libertarian would see through the licensing as protection for certain industry. The pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry and the hospital industries, and all of a sudden you find out that all that does is in all those areas, it just pumps up the cost and takes away personal choices. This is another one. Pump up the charges, and also eliminating freedom of choice, and being able for the doctor patient to do something other than the cookbook thing of Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
Fauci gains on this if this gets passed, but hopefully more and more Americans will wake up to the Fauci syndrome and say it's not good for America.
Well, that was really fascinating. It's interesting you talk about, we look to the FDA seal of approval. Now, I don't watch television, but when I'm at the gym and I'm watching the TV on the treadmill, every other commercial seems to be, if you've been injured by Vioxx, or if you've been injured by whatever,
that's
if
right.
your liver has blown up because you took this, call us and we'll defend you. It's pretty funny. Let's depend on them. Well, here's a couple of things from the article. Let's do the next one. Here's a doctor in California, and this is, I think the bill has kind of been written for him or to attack him. One physician, Dr. Syed Haider, has already been reported to for a state medical board by pharmacists saying they don't like filling ivermectin prescriptions. He has also been forced to retain a lawyer to protect his medical license. Well, what did he do? He sounds like a bad guy. He sounds like a mad doctor. Let's look at the next one. Personally, Haider has treated over 50,000 COVID-related patients, many of them elderly. He said among his patients, there have been 0 deaths and only 5 hospitalizations despite his success. They're trying to persecute him. We don't know the details. This is what he says. We're not endorsing ivermectin, but we are definitely not endorsing is a tyranny that puts someone like this that might be having some success. Maybe they should put some money into seeing what he's doing if it seems to be working. If he's a charlatan, obviously, no one's going to go to him.
This refreshes my memory because you and I had a conversation where I found this chart about the results in India where the least amount of inoculations occurred and vaccines, and the countries, and compared to the countries that had all the inoculation, and it was so dramatic. I still want to dig that up again because it's worth showing. And there was one flat line, and the people in India were immune. But they didn't have the vaccines. Can you believe that natural immunity just marched on without permission? It just went ahead and it is amazing. But this is the kind of thing they won't allow to happen. And they were in India. They were allowed to use ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. But now I think the battle has been sort of won on hydroxychloroquine. At least it's not. But now they're going after ivermectin. But we have to reach the people to demand that it's very important that they even think once again about a doctor-patient relationship, because right now medicine is government corporations, and that probably takes care of 90% of all medical care now. There's corporations involved somewhere along the way, whether it's the hospital, whether it's the lab, whether it's the insurance or whatever. And once you're locked in there, we all of a sudden find out that prices are probably there's statistics now to show it might be, at least 5 times more expensive, for going through conventional medicine compared to some people have started to discover that if you walk in and say, well, I want to pay cash for this operation that's going to cost $100,000, before you know it, they're saying, oh, we'll do it for 20.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be. So Dr. Smith up in Oklahoma City, he told me once that he practically has the cost down to the cost that, the base cost that everybody has to pay. So he of course runs a wonderful clinic and has his costs way down. But guess what? He doesn't mess with any insurance.
Yeah.
And patients can mess with the insurance. They can do it. You can still do something. But he gets the cost way down, mainly getting out of this stuff. And this is just more of the same thing, especially just think of, we saw the damage of regulating ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. But this was even a surprise to me, that 40% of the prescriptions are coming with off-label.
Yeah.
But again, that is not drugs that was manufactured in somebody's basement.
Yeah.
it was just that they were drugs used for other things, and doctors had experience of using the drugs and they were comfortable. That was more or less the argument that the doctors who advised hydrochloroquine, they were experienced by using it for other reasons. So.
Yeah. Well, it's just like with university, right? Everything the government gets involved is more expensive.
Right.
Or you pay for it out of pocket. Well, the main story that we're going to do today is kind of a continuation of what we've been talking about. And this is John Walsh did a piece in consortiumnews.com where he talks about, yet again, the mainstream media admitting that basically they've been lying to us, although they don't put it that way, since February, since the war started in Ukraine, starting to tell the truth now that a bunch of people died who didn't need to die. But he talks about a recent piece in the New York Times that says, quote, Mr. Biden should also make it clear to President Zelensky and his people that there is a limit to how far the U.S. and NATO will go to confront Russia. The limits to the arms, money, and political support they can muster. It is imperative that the Ukrainian government's decisions be based on a realistic assessment of its means and how much more destruction Ukraine can sustain. And this happens as we speak, as Severodonetsk has almost fallen out to Russia. They're moving on to Slavyansk. This whole cauldron is closing. The Ukrainian lines are collapsing. It's obvious now. Even Zelensky said over the weekend, we're in a really bad situation. So now the mainstream media, again, is trailing along to reality, saying, well, it's not looking that great.
I think this is big news because yesterday we talked about heritage.
Yeah.
That we were a little bit shocked. Heritage is switching around and saying they didn't quite come to where we are, but they at least said that this is not a winnable war and we have to start thinking about how much money we're spending. So it was a major shift. So here it is, the New York Times doing this, and they're rather in bed with corporatism, and the drug companies, but they're taking that position, which I think is very good. And I think what this is showing is there's a declaration that the proxy war is over. And the proxy war was really, although on the table it was easy to see it was NATO, against Russia, but it turned out it was really United States because we're NATO. It was the United States fighting a proxy war with Russia and protecting, an economic empire at least, But the Russians right now looks like they outfoxed them. And we had a few regulations put on. We get a new president, and he didn't help a whole lot on the oil prices, except he helped the Russians.
Yeah.
And the Russians have done quite well. They're profiting a whole lot from the whole situation and sort of laughing at us. But this is a question or something I want people to think about, and that is, we talked about heritage, now we're talking about New York Times. To me, the big thing is we have a campaign going on, and we have some dedicated hawks, in both parties. But there are more numerous in the Republican Party, and even the progressives have wimped out and have gone along with the status quo. But what will be interesting to see, if this trend continues, what's it going to be like in 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months? We ought to just sort of keep an eye on, see if anybody have shifted their language.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, since they don't have these positions based on principles, it's all politics. So right now, it's still, the American people still want us over there.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to take a lot more to wake up the American people, especially, and Rand and others have been given some credit for making the point that when you're looking at that war, since they got a lot of heat, like with Thomas, they got a lot of heat for defending, against, for the spending all that money. But if they can tie it in, now war itself doesn't cause inflation, but the spending is monetized and printed. It is inflation, so it's very inflationary. So if this continues, I would think that some of the real hawkish Republicans and maybe some of the Democrats that are hawkish too will shift and all of a sudden start. If New York Times can change their tune and heritage, I will keep an eye on it.
Yeah, they'll say, I was never in favor of that war.
Yeah.
But here's another, I think, evidence that the U.S. is at least waking up a little bit to reality. Let's put up this next clip. The U.S. will not send Ukraine rocket systems that can reach Russia, says Biden. That's slightly reassuring. The multiple rocket launchers that they're going to send, the shorter range ones, probably won't make it to the battlefield. A couple howitzers have made it to the battlefield, but they probably won't. They'll be blown up. But the idea of the U.S. sending these long-range multi-rocket launchers to Ukraine and having them hit near Moscow, that would literally, I think, put us to World War III. And the next one, of course, we haven't talked about it, but I just wanted to throw it out there because you talk about it's NATO versus Russia, it's the U.S. versus Russia. That's all totally true. It is a proxy war. But there's something else at play here, too. And let's put on that next clip because I think this is the real story of the Ukraine war. Raytheon secures a $624 million deal to produce Stinger missiles. And that means that we sent all of our missiles to Ukraine. We don't have any left, and Raytheon says, gosh, we need to make some more. How about some money? You want some money? That's what the government said. And I was looking through this article, it's on Yahoo, and looking at just see how these guys are doing this year. You know, stocks are not looking that great lately. Well, Northrop Grumman, investors have gained 28.7% over the past year. Lockheed Martin have returned 17.9% value to investors. General Dynamics, 19.3% to investors. If you're investing in war, you're bringing home the bucks.
I wonder if we should check on a few congresswomen and men and find out if they were in those kind of stocks. And you know, Pelosi has been very, very hawkish. You know,
Oh, yeah.
They're saying we can't leave here until we win this war.
Yeah.
But that was last week. I'm just wondering if that'll be another test. If you ever find that she's modified us a little bit,
Yeah.
you know that it's really over. But that's probably not going to happen. But you know, I think this whole episode is proving that fake reports and fake news does work for a while, but
Yeah.
eventually it doesn't work because it's working. It's working less now with COVID. A lot of people are waking up about COVID, but all these fake reports that Ukraine was on the verge of great victory. And you know, it was always an excuse for building more, and some American volunteers went over there. I see they're returning
they're
home.
returning home, yeah.
They're coming back. But this to me is a fake news. Really, you know, motivated people for a while, but eventually, I think the fake news now is known that well, most people are recognizing. Nobody's expecting that tomorrow you're going to say, guess what? The Russians have been pushed out of eastern Ukraine because we read so many reports already that such and such was going to happen, but it really wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Well, so here I was looking for something positive. More reason for the people to be very cautious when they hear reports from government.
Yeah, yeah. The default
Be cautious.
is they're lying,
Be cautious.
Yeah. Well, here's a great example of just how mendacious, just how horrible the media is. And this is from a UK paper, but it just as well could be any other paper. This is a columnist, Con Coughlin, and this is the progression of his op-eds through this war. February 24th, Vladimir Putin may just have made the error that ends his bloody rule. April 3rd, the West is beating Russia at its own game. April 21st, Putin's war has been a fiasco. It's about to get worse. May 5th, humiliated Russia faces an epic defining defeat. May 12th, total victory over Putin cannot be bought cheap. May 26th, Putin could be about to pull off a shock triumph. So this is the same guy from February to May going from embarrassing defeat to, oh my gosh, he's going to win, without batting an eye. And that's the message to everyone. These guys lie every time they open their mouth, every time they get on the keyboard, so they should be ridiculed. And I'm going to close, Dr. Paul, with a clip, and I previewed it for you. I just want to set it up a little bit. So this is a debate that took place between Stephen Walt, who's kind of the head of the realist school, which we have some agreement with, we don't completely endorse, but at least they're not insane. And Michael McFaul, who is insane, he was Obama's ambassador to Russia. He's the one that basically helped launch, of course, the coup of 2014 that led us into this bloody war. So Stephen Nault, just to set it up, Walt asks, why, if we knew that Ukraine wasn't going to get in NATO, why did we keep saying it throughout all this time when we could have avoided this war just by telling the truth? And let's listen to this clip. It's a minute long, but this is everything you need to know about U.S. government and U.S. foreign policy.
In 2021, we kept reiterating that Ukraine was going to join. We kept saying that over and over again. So our diplomats are lying?
Yes.
Yes,
that's the real world, guys. Come on, come on.
That, but you could.
That's the real world.
Wait a sec. Our diplomats are lying all the time, yet the Russians should trust them when they offer assurances.
No.
And we shouldn't.
Please.
No, but here's my question. If Ukraine membership in NATO is really, realistically off the table, just not going to happen, nothing for Russia to worry about, why shouldn't NATO take it back? Say, we've rethought the matter, we no longer want to consider Ukraine for NATO membership. If it's never going to happen, why not do a very simple thing that might help unwind this?
Because that would be an invitation for Russia to invade. And as you know, Russia,
already happened.
The United States...
And the guy on the right is Radek
kept
Sikorski, who's a very corrupt former Polish defense minister and foreign minister, says, well, if we had told the truth, the Russians might have invaded. And Walt says, well, they kind of did anyway, right? They did already.
Why don't we get some benefit like 2 years ago?
Yeah,
So just let them do it, and it solved a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Worked out maybe a border agreement.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks to 21st Century Wire for putting that up on Twitter. That's a great classic clip. You know, download that and keep watching it. So I'm all finished, Dr. Paul.
Oh, okay. Once again, I think what we've been talking about is something that very easily can be used to point out the benefits of a non-interventionist foreign policy and just staying out of the business. And one of the strongest argument against our case is that there will be more wars and it's not in America's interest. That's what they tell you, assuming that empire is in our interest. And our argument is that empire is not in our interest. It doesn't make us safer and more secure. It doesn't make us richer. It makes us poorer. And it has to defy, our traditions and our rules, like the pretense that the Congress has something to say about going to war, and yet we know that's not true. Since World War II, we've been going to war by, declaration of one individual or a group or political groups putting pressure on the administration. And this is the reason that we work hard at trying to renew energy and interest and an understanding of what non-intervention is really all about. I think it's very pro-American. I think it's a good economic sense. I think it makes good moral sense. And best of all, I think if we're interested in peace and prosperity, that's the way to go with non-interventionist foreign policies. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.